Anna, a woman once dismissed by her society, was in fact uniquely chosen by God. Her life, though seemingly insignificant to those around her, carried immense importance in one of the greatest stories ever told. Yet her role, so central to the divine narrative, has been overshadowed for centuries. Her story is almost entirely absent from the traditional Bible, but it can be found in the apocryphal writings, particularly the Proto-Evangelium of James. This lesser-known text, unfamiliar to many today, reveals a fascinating and moving account of Anna's life. But this leads us to an important question. Why has Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, been excluded from the sacred scriptures we commonly read? How is it that a figure so vital to God's grand plan is missing from canonical accounts? To answer this, we must look back to the formative years of Christianity, when church leaders were tasked with deciding which writings would make up the New Testament. The Proto-Evangelium of James, which provides a detailed account of Anna's life and the miraculous birth of her daughter Mary, was excluded from the canon and labeled as apocryphal. Though this text was widely revered in some early Christian communities, it was ultimately set aside. The reasons for this decision likely stemmed from theological priorities of the time, as the Church sought to craft a cohesive and uniform set of teachings. Despite its exclusion, Anna's story, as detailed in the Proto-Evangelium, endured, preserving her legacy as a woman of profound faith, resilience, and divine purpose. The story begins with a startling truth, one that few know even today. Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, was a woman rejected by men, but chosen by God for an extraordinary mission. She would become the mother of Mary, who in turn would give birth to the Messiah, the Savior of the world. Yet in her own time, Anna's life was marked by suffering. She lived under the heavy shadow of societal judgment, scorned because she was unable to conceive a child. In that era, barrenness was more than just a personal sorrow, it was a public shame. Women who could not bear children were often seen as cursed or abandoned by God. For Anna, this stigma was especially cruel. She was a direct descendant of King David, the royal bloodline from which the Messiah was prophesied to come. Her inability to conceive brought immense pressure, as whispers and judgments surrounded her. Year after year, Anna endured the pain of childlessness, her womb empty, and the hopes of her community fading. To fully understand Anna's plight, it's important to grasp the cultural and spiritual context of Israel at the time. God's people were living under foreign domination, longing desperately for a savior to deliver them. Prophecies foretold that the Messiah would arise from the lineage of David, and as a result, women of David's bloodline bore the immense weight of expectation. But for Anna, her barrenness seemed like a cruel contradiction. How could she, a woman from the very family destined to bring forth the Messiah, remain childless? In ancient Israel, barrenness was not just a personal misfortune, it carried a spiritual stigma. Fertility was seen as a sign of God's blessing, while infertility was often interpreted as divine punishment. Women who were unable to conceive were viewed as failures, their identities tied so closely to their ability to bear children. For Anna, the whispers and rumors surrounding her barrenness became unbearable. In this culture, a woman's worth was often judged by her ability to produce heirs, especially in families of significance like Anna's. Society relegated women like Anna to the background, dismissing them as unworthy. But while men and society looked down on her, God had other plans that would elevate her to a role of immense importance. Though Anna was scorned by her community, God had chosen her for a purpose far beyond human understanding. While those around her viewed her as insignificant, God was preparing her for a mission that would change the course of history. Through Anna, he would bring into the world the mother of the Messiah. This is where her story truly begins to reveal its power. God's plans often defy human expectations. While people look to the mighty and the exalted, God chooses the humble, the rejected, and the faithful to fulfill his purposes. Anna was born into a noble family, a direct descendant of King David. From a young age, her life was shaped by the stories of her ancestors and the divine promises made to her lineage. These were not just tales, but profound reminders of the prophecy that one day, from her bloodline, the Messiah would be born. Anna grew up with a deep sense of spiritual responsibility, surrounded by a family devoted to their faith and heritage. In her household, the stories of King David and God's covenant with Israel were constant reminders of the role her family was destined to play. As Anna grew older, the weight of this expectation intensified. Her marriage would not just be a personal milestone, but a step toward fulfilling a divine promise. In her youth, Anna met Joachim, a man of noble lineage and deep faith. Like Anna, he shared a connection to the house of David and a devotion to God's promises. Their marriage was celebrated with great enthusiasm, as their union symbolized hope for the future. Surely, it was believed, they would bring forth a child destined for greatness, a child who might fulfill the prophecies of the Messiah. But as time passed, Anna and Joachim's hopes were met with disappointment. Years went by, and Anna remained childless. The anticipation that surrounded their marriage turned into pressure and eventually into judgment. As the years dragged on, the pressure on Anna and Joachim intensified. In their culture, children were seen as a direct blessing from God, and the absence of children raised difficult questions. Why had God withheld his favor from them? Whispers began to follow Anna wherever she went. At first, the murmurs were filled with pity, but over time they grew harsher, tinged with suspicion and judgment. Women would speak softly as Anna passed by, wondering aloud if perhaps there was some hidden sin in her life that had made her unworthy of motherhood. What began as a slight worry in Anna's heart eventually grew into an overwhelming shadow of despair. Infertility was not only a personal heartbreak, but a public disgrace. To be barren was to carry a mark of divine rejection, and Anna felt the weight of this judgment every day. Yet, even as her prayers seemed to go unanswered, her faith remained. Anna and Joachim prayed fervently, day and night, pleading with God for a child. Despite their steadfast faith, their unanswered prayers became a source of deep sorrow. For Joachim, the pain of seeing his wife suffer was particularly acute. Though society placed the burden of infertility primarily on women, he shared in the grief and shame that came with it. Together, they faced a silent struggle, their love for each other bolstered by their shared devotion to God. The community, however, was less kind. Once respected for their noble lineage and piety, Anna and Joachim became the subjects of cruel speculation. People questioned why God had withheld his blessing from them, wondering aloud if their barrenness was a sign of divine displeasure. The very same people who had once celebrated their union now cast doubt upon their faithfulness. For Anna, this judgment was especially hard to bear. Her prayers, which had once been filled with hope, became tinged with sadness and desperation. The visits to the temple, which had once been moments of spiritual connection, became painful reminders of her unfulfilled longing. Each year, during religious festivals, Anna and Joachim felt the weight of their barrenness more acutely, as the joyful celebrations of others only highlighted their own sorrow. But even in the midst of their despair, their faith did not falter. Anna and Joachim clung to their belief that God had a purpose for their suffering, even if they could not yet see it. Joachim, burdened by the weight of societal judgment and his own feelings of inadequacy, decided to retreat to the desert. Following in the footsteps of the patriarchs like Abraham and Moses, he sought solitude in the wilderness, hoping to hear from God. There, alone with his thoughts and prayers, he poured out his heart, asking for clarity, comfort, or even just the strength to endure. Meanwhile, Anna remained at home, consumed by her own prayers. Her faith, though unshakable, was tested in ways she had never imagined. Each day she wrestled with feelings of doubt and despair, wondering why God's silence persisted, but she refused to give up. Deep down, Anna held on to the belief that there was a purpose behind her pain, even if she could not yet understand it. It was during this time of deep anguish that the miraculous occurred. One day, as Anna sat beneath a tree, praying with all the strength she could muster, a radiant light filled the space around her. Suddenly, a celestial figure appeared before her, an angel of the Lord, shining with a divine brilliance. The angel spoke to her with words that pierced through her despair and filled her heart with hope. "Anna, Anna, the Lord has heard your prayers. You will conceive and bear a child, and your offspring will be known throughout the earth." The years of suffering and rejection melted away in an instant. Anna, who had spent so long believing she was forgotten by God, now stood in the presence of a heavenly messenger, hearing a promise that her life was about to change forever. At the same time, in the desert, Joachim was also visited by an angel. As he knelt in prayer, feeling unworthy and abandoned, the angel appeared and spoke to him with words of comfort and reassurance. "Joachim, do not fear. The Lord has heard your prayers. Your wife Anna will conceive a child, and that child will be great in the eyes of God." Overwhelmed with joy and relief, Joachim's heart was lifted. He knew that the years of sorrow had not been in vain and that God had been listening all along. Without delay, he prepared to return home to Anna, eager to share the miraculous news. When Joachim arrived home, he found Anna radiant with a light he had never seen before. Without needing to exchange words, they both knew that God had spoken to them and that their prayers had been answered. The silence of years had been broken, and their faith had been rewarded. True to the angel's promise, Anna soon conceived. The joy that filled their hearts was indescribable. After years of enduring scorn and rejection, Anna and Joachim now found themselves at the center of God's divine plan. The child Anna carried was no ordinary child, but a miraculous gift destined for a purpose far greater than they could have imagined. Months later, Anna gave birth to a daughter, and they named her Mary. According to tradition, Anna was already advanced in age, likely in her 60s, when this miracle took place, making the event even more extraordinary. Her barrenness, once seen as a mark of disgrace, was transformed into a testimony of God's power and faithfulness. Holding her newborn daughter in her arms, Anna felt a peace she had never known. She understood that Mary was not just an answer to her prayers, but the fulfillment of a divine promise. This child, born of divine intervention, was destined to play a crucial role in God's plan for humanity. Anna and Joachim embraced their new roles as parents with gratitude and devotion, knowing that Mary was no ordinary child. They poured their love and attention into raising her, and were fully aware of the sacred responsibility they had been entrusted with. Mary was a gift not just to them, but to all humanity, and Anna especially felt the profound significance of her daughter's life. From the very beginning, Anna and Joachim noticed a unique light about Mary. She exhibited a grace and purity that seemed beyond her years, a sign of the divine hand upon her life. Anna's role in shaping Mary's early years was crucial. As a mother, she taught her daughter not only the traditions and teachings of their faith, but also the importance of humility, compassion, and unwavering trust in God's will. The months and years following Mary's birth were filled with a joy that words could scarcely capture. Anna, who had once been scorned by society, now saw her life transformed by divine grace. The same people who had whispered cruel judgments about her barrenness now looked upon her with admiration and awe. Her story was a living testament to God's power and His ability to transform what the world sees as broken into something extraordinary. Anna's love for Mary was boundless, but it was also marked by a deep understanding of the divine mission her daughter was destined to fulfill. This knowledge gave Anna a unique perspective on motherhood. She recognized that Mary was not hers to keep. Mary belonged to God. As Mary grew, Anna and Joachim prepared to fulfill a promise they had made to God. Long before Mary's birth, in the depths of their sorrow, they had vowed that if God blessed them with a child, they would dedicate that child to His service. Now, with hearts full of faith, they prepared to bring Mary to the temple. This was not an easy decision. For Anna, parting with her daughter was deeply painful. She had waited so long for Mary, and the bond they shared was unlike anything she had ever known. Yet Anna trusted in God's plan. She knew that Mary was destined for something far greater than an ordinary life, and she found comfort in the knowledge that Mary's dedication to God was part of His divine purpose. When the day came to bring Mary to the temple, Anna's heart was heavy with both pride and sorrow. She knew this was the right path, but the thought of being separated from her beloved daughter brought tears to her eyes. As she and Joachim carried Mary to the temple, they were filled with a profound sense of gratitude. This act of consecration was their way of giving back to God the most precious gift they had ever received. The temple priests received Mary with joy, recognizing the special light that surrounded her. From that day forward, Mary's life would be dedicated entirely to God, as Anna and Joachim had promised. Anna's life after Mary's consecration was quieter, but no less meaningful. Although she no longer had her daughter by her side, she continued to pray and devote herself to God. Her faith, which had carried her through years of barrenness and despair, remained steadfast. Anna found peace in knowing that she had fulfilled her role in God's plan. According to tradition, Anna was blessed with the opportunity to watch Mary grow into a young woman filled with grace and wisdom. Though Anna did not live to see her grandson Jesus born in Bethlehem, she passed away, knowing that her legacy would live on through Mary and ultimately through the Savior of the world. Anna's story is a powerful testament to God's ability to use the overlooked and the forgotten for his greatest purposes. She, who had been dismissed by society and plagued by years of heartache, was chosen to play a central role in the story of salvation. Her life is a reminder that God's timing is perfect, even when it feels delayed, and that his plans often unfold in ways we cannot immediately see. Through Anna's unwavering faith, Mary was shaped into the woman who would one day say yes to God's most extraordinary request, to become the mother of Jesus. Anna's influence, though quiet and often overlooked, extended far beyond her own life. As Mary grew, she carried with her the lessons and values instilled by her mother. Anna's example of resilience, humility, and trust in God became a foundation for Mary's own faith. These qualities would prepare Mary for her role in the divine plan, enabling her to embrace God's will with grace and courage. Even though Anna's life was marked by hardship, she never allowed her circumstances to dictate her faith. Her story reminds us that our struggles, no matter how painful, are often part of a greater purpose. In the simple home where Mary was raised, Anna played a central role in her spiritual upbringing. She taught Mary the stories of their ancestors, recounting the promises God had made to Israel and the hope of a coming Messiah. Through prayer and quiet reflection, Anna encouraged Mary to trust in God's mysterious ways, even when his plans seemed unclear. Anna's own life was a living example of this trust. She had faced years of suffering and unanswered prayers but had remained faithful, and her faith had been rewarded in ways she could never have imagined. This lesson was not lost on Mary, who grew up seeing her mother as a model of unwavering devotion. As Mary matured, Anna noticed something extraordinary in her daughter. Mary possessed a purity of heart and a spiritual sensitivity that set her apart from others. Anna often retreated with Mary to a quiet corner of their home, where they would pray together, their hands clasped in silence. These moments of communion were sacred, and Anna felt a deep connection to God through her daughter. Though Anna's body grew weaker with age, her spirit remained strong. She poured all her remaining energy into preparing Mary for the life ahead, knowing that her time with her daughter was limited. Anna's advancing age brought its own challenges. The physical toll of her years, combined with the demands of raising a child later in life, often left her feeling fatigued. Yet, she never allowed her weakness to deter her from her mission. Anna was determined to leave Mary with the tools she would need to fulfill her destiny. As Mary watched her mother endure hardships with grace and determination, she learned the strength that comes from faith. Anna's ability to face adversity with unwavering trust in God left a lasting impression on Mary, shaping her into the woman who would one day bear the Savior of the world. As Anna entered her final years, she reflected on her life with a profound sense of gratitude. She had experienced deep sorrow and rejection, but she had also been blessed with a miracle that changed everything. The child she had longed for and prayed for, the child born to her in her old age, was now growing into a young woman filled with grace and wisdom. Anna's heart swelled with pride and joy as she watched Mary mature. Mary's character reflected the spiritual lessons Anna had worked so hard to instill. Anna had taught her daughter the importance of humility, trust, and devotion to God. She had shared with Mary the stories of their ancestors, the promises God had made to their people, and the hope of a coming Savior. These lessons, woven into Mary's upbringing, would later prepare her to embrace her role in God's plan with courage and faith. Though Anna's life had been filled with challenges, she now understood that her suffering had not been in vain. Each moment of despair, every unanswered prayer had been part of a greater purpose. The years of waiting had prepared her for the joy and responsibility of raising Mary, and through Mary, Anna's legacy would live on. Anna's story reminds us that God's timing is not our own. What once seemed like rejection and silence was in fact preparation for a miracle beyond her wildest dreams. Anna, who had been scorned by society and burdened by years of longing, now stood as a testament to God's faithfulness. Her life was a powerful reminder that God often uses the overlooked and the forgotten to fulfill his greatest plans. As Mary grew into a young woman, Anna watched with awe as her daughter displayed a maturity and wisdom that surpassed her years. Mary's purity of heart and devotion to God were evident to all who knew her. Anna sensed that the years of prayer and spiritual guidance were bearing fruit, and she marveled at how God was working in her daughter's life. Though their life in Nazareth was simple, Anna understood that something extraordinary was unfolding. Mary's quiet strength and deep faith were signs of the divine purpose she was destined to fulfill. Anna's role as Mary's mother was not just to care for her physical needs, but to nurture her spiritually, preparing her for the moment when God's plan would be revealed. The day eventually came when Mary was taken to the temple, fulfilling the promise Anna and Joachim had made during their years of prayer. They had vowed that if God blessed them with a child, they would dedicate that child to his service. Now, with heavy hearts and steadfast faith, they brought Mary to the temple, entrusting her completely to God. For Anna, this moment was bittersweet. She had waited so long for Mary, and the bond they shared was unbreakable. Letting go of her daughter was one of the hardest things she had ever done. But Anna trusted in God's plan, just as she always had. She knew that Mary's life was not hers to control, but God's to direct. As Anna and Joachim left Mary at the temple, their hearts were filled with a mix of pride and sadness. They had fulfilled their promise to God, but the absence of their beloved daughter was deeply felt. Anna often thought of Mary, imagining her life in the temple and praying that God would guide her every step. Though the temple now became Mary's home, the spiritual foundation Anna had laid during her early years continued to shape her. Anna had instilled in Mary a deep trust in God's mysterious ways, a trust that would later prepare Mary to accept her own extraordinary calling. As Anna's life drew to a close, she looked back on her journey with a heart full of peace. She had faced unimaginable challenges, but she had also experienced the joy of God's faithfulness. Anna's role in raising Mary, the mother of the Savior, was her greatest honor and the fulfillment of her deepest prayers. According to tradition, Anna did not live to see the birth of her grandson Jesus, nor did she witness his ministry. But her legacy endured through Mary, whose faith and courage would change the course of history. Anna's influence, though quiet and often overlooked, was vital in shaping the woman who would bring the Savior into the world. Even though Anna never met Jesus in an earthly sense, her life was deeply connected to his mission. Through her love, guidance, and faith, she had prepared Mary to fulfill her role as the mother of the Messiah. Anna's story is a testament to how God uses ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. Her sacrifices, her prayers, and her unwavering faith had an eternal impact, not just on her family, but on all of humanity. Anna's life reminds us that even in our moments of greatest despair, God is working behind the scenes, weaving a plan far greater than we can imagine. Mary carried the lessons she learned from Anna into her own life. The values of humility, trust, and devotion that Anna had instilled in her were reflected in Mary's response to the angel Gabriel's announcement. "Behold, I am the servant of the Lord. Let it be done to me according to your word." This willingness to surrender to God's will, even in the face of uncertainty, was a direct reflection of Anna's influence. Anna's quiet strength and unshakable faith had left an indelible mark on Mary, shaping her into the woman who would bear the Savior of the world. As Anna's life came to its natural end, she left this world with a heart full of gratitude and hope. She had fulfilled her role in God's plan, and her legacy would live on through Mary and the generations to come. Though Anna's story is not as well known as others in the Bible, it remains a powerful example of faith, perseverance, and the transformative power of God's love. Anna's life teaches us that no matter how insignificant we may feel, God has a purpose for each of us. Her journey, marked by suffering and redemption, is a reminder that our struggles are often part of a larger divine plan. Though Anna's story ends long before Jesus' ministry begins, her impact is undeniable. She raised a daughter who would one day bring salvation into the world, and in doing so, Anna became an integral part of God's plan for humanity. Her legacy is a reminder that the most extraordinary purposes can be fulfilled through the lives of ordinary people who place their trust in God. As we reflect on Anna's life, we are invited to consider how our own struggles and sacrifices might serve a greater purpose. Like Anna, we may not always see the full picture of God's plan during our lifetimes, but we can trust that He is working through us in ways we cannot yet comprehend. Even after her passing, Anna's story continued to inspire those who knew it. Early Christians, particularly in communities that preserved the apocryphal writings, viewed Anna as a model of faith and endurance. Her story was a source of comfort for those facing their own trials, reminding them that God's timing, though often mysterious, is always perfect. Anna's life also serves as a reminder of the power of prayer. She and Joachim spent years praying for a child, and though their prayers seemed to go unanswered, they never stopped believing in God's ability to intervene. Their persistence in prayer is a testament to the importance of trusting in God's plan, even when it feels as though He is silent. For Anna, the years of waiting and suffering were not wasted. They were a time of preparation, shaping her into the woman God needed her to be to fulfill her role in His plan. This is a powerful reminder that our own seasons of struggle can serve a divine purpose, even if we do not understand it at the time. Through Anna's story, we see how God often works through the overlooked and the underestimated. Society may have dismissed Anna as barren and forgotten, but God saw her as integral to His plan for redemption. He chose her, not in spite of her struggles, but because of them. As the years passed, Anna's story became a beacon of hope for generations to come. Her life demonstrates that God's promises are always fulfilled, even when they seem delayed. The birth of Mary, who would one day bring Jesus into the world, was a direct result of Anna's faith and perseverance. Her life also shows us that God's blessings often come in ways we least expect. Anna prayed for a child, but the answer to her prayers went far beyond anything she could have imagined. Her daughter Mary would not only bring her personal joy, but also serve as the vessel through which salvation would come to all of humanity. In the quiet moments of her later years, Anna likely reflected on the incredible journey she had taken. From her years of sorrow and shame to the joy of holding Mary in her arms, every step of her life had been part of a greater plan. Though she did not live to see her grandson Jesus, she passed away knowing that her faith had played a crucial role in bringing God's promises to fruition. Mary, carrying forward the lessons she learned from Anna, would go on to become the mother of the Savior. Her humility, devotion, and unwavering trust in God were all reflections of the foundation Anna had built during her early years. Anna's story leaves us with a profound truth. Our lives, no matter how small or insignificant they may seem, can have an eternal impact. Her faith, perseverance, and willingness to trust in God's plan made her a cornerstone of the greatest story ever told. Through her example, we are reminded that God's purposes often unfold in ways that defy human logic, transforming even our deepest sorrows into sources of hope and joy. Today, Anna's legacy endures not just as the grandmother of Jesus, but as a symbol of faith and resilience. Her life invites us to reflect on our own journeys and to trust that even in the midst of our struggles, God is at work. Like Anna, we are called to remain faithful, even when the path ahead seems uncertain. Her story also challenges us to consider how we can leave a legacy of faith for those who come after us. Anna's influence on Mary shaped the course of history, and in the same way, our own lives can have a lasting impact on the generations that follow. As we bring Anna's story to a close, we are left with a message of hope. Her life reminds us that God's timing is perfect, His plans are good, and His promises are always fulfilled. Though Anna's journey was marked by hardship, it ultimately became a testament to God's faithfulness and love. Her story invites us to trust in God's plan for our own lives, even when we cannot see the full picture. It challenges us to remain steadfast in our faith, knowing that our struggles are often part of a greater purpose. Now I invite you to pause for a moment and reflect on Anna's life. Think about her faith, her perseverance, and the way she trusted in God's timing. Let her story inspire you to hold on to hope, even in the face of challenges. Remember that, like Anna, you are part of a divine plan that is far greater than anything you can imagine. Take a moment to consider the promises God has made to you. Even if they seem delayed, know that His timing is perfect and His plans are filled with love and purpose. Through Anna's story, we are reminded that no matter how difficult our journey may seem, God is always working behind the scenes, preparing the way for blessings greater than we can comprehend. Anna's story is one of profound faith in the face of despair. And for me, what resonates most deeply is her ability to remain steadfast even when it seemed like God was silent. Her years of unanswered prayers, her perseverance despite the societal shame of barrenness, and her ultimate trust in God's plan, all of it speaks to a kind of faith that I think we all strive for but often struggle to achieve. What strikes me most is the way Anna's suffering prepared her for her role in God's divine plan. She didn't let her hardships define her or break her spirit. Instead, she allowed her pain to become a channel through which she grew closer to God. This is a powerful reminder that our struggles, no matter how overwhelming they may feel, can be part of something greater than we can see at the moment. In my own life, I think Anna's story serves as an example of the importance of patience and trust. Like Anna, we often pray for things and feel like the answers are delayed or absent, but her journey shows us that God's silence is never abandonment, it's preparation. Applying her legacy means embracing a mindset of faith even when the road ahead seems uncertain. It means continuing to pray, to trust, and to believe that God is working in ways that will eventually lead to something beautiful, even if it's beyond our current understanding. Anna's life also inspires me to focus on how we shape the next generation. She raised Mary not just with love, but with a deep spiritual foundation, which became critical for Mary's own role in the story of salvation. In my own life, that's a call to consider how my actions, values, and faith can influence and inspire those around me, especially the younger generation. Now it's your turn. What part of Anna's story speaks most to your heart? How can you apply her legacy of faith and perseverance in your own life? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them below. And if this story of Anna has moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell so you never miss our future videos. We're grateful to have you with us on this journey of exploring faith and inspiration. Until next time, may the peace and light of God guide you and fill your heart always.